Welcome back, everyone. Again, this is Wednesday, April 15th, 2015, episode 23 of the late game. I have Nathanias, Apollo, CatZ. We just got done talking about the WCS qualifiers. We're going to now move into player behavior. This coming up, once again, Firecake at the center of controversy with his behavior during the WCS qualifiers. This time going AFK for what I believe was about 3 minutes. During the game is what I heard. Maybe it was different than that, but nonetheless, it brings to question, first of all, what level of respect do players have for WCS and Blizzard as an organization that provides a career for them, and two, to what extent should we expect a little bit of maturity from players, and to what extent should we expect player managers and team owners to manage how their players behave? Do we need to start taking a more critical sanctions against them, fines, things like that? What do we do? So I'm gonna kick this to you, CatZ, as someone who manages players, as someone who has a team. Do you ever have discussions with your players about how they should behave, or do you just have a very good set of well-behaved players?
No, we usually don't really discuss about how to behave. I mean, if someone does something bad, then I'll be like, hey, don't do that. But it's usually after the fact. Now, I don't know how fair it is to use Firecake as an example, because I mean the guy's just a douchebag, right? So, like, no player likes Firecake. Like, at least not the great majority of players. Like, the guy's just an asshole. So.
Well, so let's say you have Firecake on your team, right? And this is before Firecake is well known as he is now for this kind of behavior. You have him on your team, and you start seeing him do these things. You see the ladder conversations coming, people tweeting those out. You see, these Reddit threads. How do you address it as a team owner?
That's a really tough question, because I can't imagine having Firecake on my team.
Okay, let's say that Hydra started acting this way. He was going AFK during long games, or he was delaying the bracket, or he was just being a general asshole and making very vitriolic comments to other players. How would you react?
I've been trying to teach Hydra more BM, so it's also a difficult position.
Work with me
myself
here, man. You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I really don't know. It's a tough thing to do, I suppose, but I think it's on each player, and not so much the teams, to regulate this sort of thing, as well as rules by the tournaments, perhaps.
Now, the WCS rules do say that players in WCS are expected to act in a certain, respectful way, just with good behavior. But what doesn't, and this could be, picking at semantics, but it doesn't say in
What
and
punishment
out
is.
of the game. It says, you're respected as a WCS player, but it doesn't say as a WCS player in matches versus WCS player. Once you've qualified for WCS, you now fall under, our requirements of behavior. Nathanias or Apollo, do you know if Blizzard does expect you to behave like that at all times, or if that is just, decorum for the WCS circuit?
Is that a kettle or a whistle?
I'm not sure. What is that a kettle? Can you turn off the kettle, whoever is boiling something?
Ramen hype.
Can you turn it off? Whatever.
Team manager says, "Cut that out."
That's how CatZ handles bad behavior in the root house.
See that? That's how he does it, man. See?
What the fuck is that?
See? What the fuck?
The fuck is that?
See? Team manager right there, boys.
What? Oh, my computer? It's my computer.
What?
I don't know what's wrong with it.
That's not a sound a computer should be making.
No.
Yeah. Well, if I disconnect, this is gonna be bad. Or it's what
That's it's getting worse, bro.
is there a mouse inside my computer?
Is one of your fans, just like so caught up with dust because you haven't
It's just like-
out that it's like.
I know a lot of my fans are assholes, but this is
Well met.
Wait, you fixed it.
That's how
And
you
he's
fix.
gone. He's gone.
Oh,
Rip and pepperoni.
That was brilliant. You
He's
just
frozen.
heard that. You just heard that.
He hit his computer. He's like, "This'll fix it."
He's gone.
I guess I have to get back on Skype. So
Look
many
at his
messages.
picture. Look at his fucking face.
We're leaving that. That's not going anywhere. That's staying exactly like that.
Rip CatZ's final moments.
I took a screenshot of that, man. That's a great screenshot. All
right.
That one go.
So while CatZ is frozen in place, I'm getting back on Skype so because he can't add me on here. All right, so we're get that question back out there. Nathanias and Apollo, the rules in the WCS handbook say that WCS players are expected to act in a certain way, but it's kind of vague. It doesn't say we expect you to act this way at all times once you qualify for WCS. And to me, the way I interpret it is, it sounds like in WCS matches, at WCS tournaments, you will behave this way. Do either of you have a little further insight? Does Blizzard expect once you qualify all ladder games and everything, you must act like a decent human being if you're going to play in WCS?
Well, I think any game developer wants and wishes that for every player that plays their game, and I'm sure they would love that to be the case, but you can't put that onto somebody. In the rulebook, it should, if it doesn't, state that you must behave in an appropriate manner, and these are the consequences that you must deal with if you don't. And being away from keyboard, it should be one that is in there.
Absolutely. So I definitely think there's no question that that was a little, very much out of line, actually. But what does Blizzard do? Do they go after the individual player? Do they disqualify him from the rest of the season, or do they take action
There's
against?
a warning system in place.
Right. And
So
I don't know.
him.
Okay, so you warn him.
The thing is, it's very difficult to, especially when you compare it to LCS. LCS players are salaried. So when they behave poorly, you say, well, we will fine you because we pay you not to do this. In WCS, the money that you earn is through prize money. So
True.
It's not necessarily that Blizzard are paying you to play. Once you qualify, you do get prize money, but you're not salaried. So it's a lot more difficult to enforce this because Riot can just end up, well, we're paying you, shut up. But it's a little bit different there.
Right.
But still, out of common courtesy and common sense, I think it should be standard for everybody not to behave the way that some people do. And it's not just Firecake as one. There are definitely others.
Right. He's just a prominent example, but I definitely agree with you. Do you think that there should be? So I can kind of see that. I can very much see that. You earn the money by playing. You win that money. That's your prize money. But like with the NFL, and I don't know what soccer's like overseas, football for you guys, what it's like there. But I know the NFL is kind of the same thing. They can impose those financial sanctions against you because the league pays you.
So the thing is, you can. That's what you said, is that you can fine them money because you pay them that money, and you can take it away. But in WCS, what do? If this guy does it 3 times in a row, do you disqualify him from a season?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is harsh. How do you punish this guy?
Right.
You can't take money away. You can't deduct. Well, can you deduct prize money? I guess that's a one way that you'd look at it, but. That's also in the same category as being overly harsh potentially.
Yeah, no, and exactly, and then that brings to question. So what do you do? Do you go after the player, or do you go after the team? And you say, hey, team, you want to provide players to participate in this. We give your players an opportunity for a career. You need to have a little control over your players. But then if you go after the team might cut the player. Because you've become a financial disadvantage. A lot of these teams don't get a lot of money from their sponsors.
Yeah, it has to be through the player.
Yeah, so I guess it's just a matter of to what extent, when do we start taking action? To what extent of action do we take? Because people aren't dying. Where no one's beating anyone up in the back of the studio at the moment. Or as far as I'm aware, I've never heard any of that happening. But it's just a lot of negative behavior is what we're talking about here.
I don't know. I think the best way is just to have a warning system in place. Maybe have 3-4 warnings, and then on the last one you really enforce it that if you mess up again, you're just not playing again. Okay. And the backlash you'll get from the community is that I can't believe they're not allowing him to play, but as long as you're very transparent about it, we gave him 4 chances. Here is chance number 1 where he went away from keyboard for 3 minutes. This is chance number 2 where he told the admin to fuck off during the map vetoes. This is chance number 3 where he wouldn't play this match and just decided to forfeit. Mm-hmm. And this is chance number 4 where he didn't turn up on that day. We can't be more honest with you. He cannot play because of these.
Yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward. And once at the same time, it gets the added benefit of once people see Blizzard taking these actions against these players, then it's a little more respect of for Blizzard, from the community. It's a little respect from the players too. You know,
Yeah, but it's almost that it's ESL, not Blizzard, though, right? It's ESL
true.
that runs this league.
Yeah, very true. Very true. All right, I think that's a pretty cut and dry discussion of that. Obviously, no one likes to see the negative behavior. No one enjoys that, and you know, it's something that I hope that as we develop as a community, esports in general overall, that professionalism becomes something that's a little more desired. You know, but we're going to now move into the Team Liquid, the economy discussion, and we're going to bring in Zeromos in here. He's been waiting patiently in the green room, if you will. So we're going to pull him into the conversation. Zeromos, you there?
Yeah, man. Can you hear me fine?
I sure can. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Yourselves?
Doing well, thanks. Oh, we have CatZ back too.
Hello, mate.
Can you make sure that auto adjust is still off for your mic? It should. The setting should still be the same.
Where is that again?
Bless you. Bless you. In the bottom left of the settings.
What was funny about sneezing, man?
It's really loud. It's straight into my ears, and you could have like maybe try to hold it and pause or mute the mic or something, but no.
That wouldn't have annoyed you, though.
Welcome back, mate.
So did
Thank you.
Just restarting your computer did it?
Yeah, but we lost a fan. Rob came by, Rob from production. He slammed the computer, and then the fan fell off, and everything froze.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so we have Zeromos in here to bring you up to speed, CatZ. We're getting in on the Team Liquid economy changes discussion. So Zeromos, give us the TLDR. Talk to us, first of all, about what has been changed for Legacy of the Void, and then the changes you're suggesting.
Right. So in Legacy of the Void, what they decided to do was try a half-patch approach to adjust the economy so that we lose the 3-base cap, quote unquote, as it's called commonly. And we basically looked at that and thought, based on work other people have done before us, we're not 100% sure that's really the core issue of StarCraft 2 and its economy. Is not necessarily the fact that you can turtle on 3 bases, but why you can turtle on 3 bases. So we did some analysis, and we came to the conclusion that what people like to call the 3-base cap is that being on 3 bases is quote unquote optimal income. And it's because people want to have a proper balance between their army and their economy. So you don't want really that much more than 75 workers most of the time, unless you're Zerg, you want a few more just to have that better economy, make use of the 4th base. But generally you want 75-ish supply in workers, 125-ish supply in armor, and you want that on 3 bases. So assuming both players have the same number of workers and at least the same number of mineral patches available to them being mined, their income will always be the same. So one player having 5 more bases means nothing if they don't also have many more workers to mine from those 5 more bases. So this is why we see what people like to call the 3-base cap. And the game mechanic that results in this happening is worker pairing, which means that workers will mine as a pair at all bases, and income for 2 workers on 1 patch is the same as income for 1 worker on each patch. So if you have 10 bases and you've got all the workers on 1 patch spread out across the map, that doesn't really matter as long as compared to the other guy who's got 2 workers on each patch and has fewer bases. So that's where the cap comes from. It's really more about worker pairing and there being 24 mineral nodes available for about 48 to 54 workers. That is the real cap, and not just the fact that there's 3 command centers or 3 nexuses. It's more about how many mineral patches they're mining from. So the risk of a 4th is only really justified by the gas available at the 4th base if you're taking it for the gas. And when the main is mining out as well. The only other situation in which a 4th base is quote unquote viable or wanted is a Zerg who's going above 85 drones. They can actually saturate the 4th base's mineral line to sacrifice their army size in order to make more money than their opponent, to try and trade out even inefficiently and grind the other person down or do a tech switch, that kind of thing. So what we want to do is break the worker pair, which is hopefully going to reward players for expanding more and spreading their workers out across the map, which incentivizes expansion-based gameplay, and it disincentivizes turtling super hard by providing an actual counterplay to the turtle-based strategies.
So can you explain to me, so the very short version of that is you want to take away, or you're taking away worker pairing and making it more beneficial to have more bases than the 3 base cap?
Yes, we
Oh.
want to take away worker pairing so that spreading your workers results in more income for the player who's able to spread out across the map and put their workers on different bases.
Okay, in the short version, how you have the turtle player, right? And that
Yep.
turtle style. How does expanding more beat the turtle player in
So-
the changed economy?
For sure. So in the changed economy, what we find, we've seen and analyzed as being the main issue with turtle play in Heart of the Swarm is one, the fact that you can get up to a maxed army off just 3 bases. And then also the fact that when the turtle player is holding really tight to his bases, they'll trade out super efficiently against their opponent, right? So you'll see inefficient trades for the guy who's trying to be aggressive, and the guy who's trying to defend will be really efficient and kill more than he loses in every trade. The big problem with this in the Heart of the Swarm economy is because of the cap, the income cap that you achieve, you basically need to either have a lot more workers than your opponent and have an inefficient sized army to make even worse trades against the opponent, or you need to have the same workers and make inefficient trades to pick away the opponent's army.
So
The problem with that is that the guy who's turtling is making the same amount of money as the guy who's attacking, so their net income is better for the dude who's defending as opposed to the guy who's being aggressive. So you end up having the aggressive guy starving themselves out as opposed to getting an income advantage and using it to whittle the other guy down to a really weak army over time.
Okay, so what you're saying is this. So we have Turtle Terran or whatever sitting back on his 2 bases or 3 bases, right? He's not really moving out. He's just in this defensive position. So in Heart of the Swarm, if I have 2 bases or 3 bases, I can only get a 3-base economy. So if this guy secures himself 3-base economy and he's trading effectively against me, I'm really not gaining anything. However,
Correct.
if we do these economy changes you're proposing, instead of Joe Schmo being able to sit on the other side and have those 3 bases and turtle, I can now expand to 4, 5, 6 bases, and my economy is going to actually be efficient. I'm sorry, not efficient. I'm going to get more economy because I'm getting more bases, thus allowing me to create more production structures and to take more efficient trades. And so if we're trading out evenly, in the engagement, I'm still replenishing my army faster. I can kill more of his army. I can renew my army.
Right.
And
You're
I'm taking.
replenishing your income bank quicker, so you can use your additional production to actually make an effective. Even though your trade is inefficient, other guy will be losing more because it costs him more to replace than it costs you to replace because you're still making more money. So your net income as the aggressor is actually better than the defender's net income if you play that correctly. And it puts pressure on the defender to not just sit there and do nothing. They've actually got to harass. So they can turtle all they want, but they've got to also harass to slow down your economy so that so that your game plan, your strategy as the aggressor stops being get a lot of money and make inefficient trades but grind them out. Their strategy is I'm going to be super efficient, but I'm going to be harassing the other guy so much that his economy never gets to the point where he can grind me out.
Okay.
So even the defender has to be harassing or attacking in some way while building that strong core army.
All right,
This
Apollo.
has been like a fundamental. This has been probably the fundamental problem that StarCraft 2's had from day one is the 3-base rotation, and it has always been there, and it's still there now. Zeramis, how much do you know about Brood War? You know a lot about the economy back then?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I got into StarCraft with StarCraft 2 because I bought it on a whim because everybody else at work was buying it, and here I am today.
Did you do
I've
any
watched
research
a
into
lot
the
of
Brood
Brood
War
War. I've
economy?
read a lot about Brood War, and I've worked with people who really love Brood War. Like Plexa has done a lot of work on this article with me, and he's been around for a very, very long time since the Brood War days.
So you did research on Brood War.
Yeah, we did a little bit of research on Brood War, but
What did you find with the research there in comparison to StarCraft 2? Because myself as well, I played Brood War, but I never was at a level where I invested knowledge into the economy.
I think my knowledge of Brood War is not super, super high that I can make like number to number comparisons between Brood War and the StarCraft 2 model, especially the one we're comparing. But I know that in Brood War, workers took a lot longer to mine than they do right now in StarCraft 2, and they mined 8 minerals per trip as opposed to the 4 they do now. And that resulted in having to pull your early workers being really detrimental to the player in like a very low economy situation like early pools in ZVZ. Would give the guy who's doing the early pool a big economic advantage if you force the other guy to pull drones, is what Artosis was telling us as we were doing research on the article. And I'm sure CatZ could probably speak more to that. But in the end, the whole point that we're trying to get to is that we don't want it to StarCraft 2 to be like Brood War, but we want to learn the lessons that Brood War gave us in the sense that mass expanding is a strategic option that opens up a lot of gameplay options. And it changes the purpose of harass from being about killing entire mineral lines to being about slowing the other person down, and it just adds a little bit more depth to the decision making throughout the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I mean, I love the article, by the way. It was really nice
Thank
to
you.
read.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you reading it.
CatZ, do you have any thoughts on the change?
The change that hasn't happened, right?
Right, correct,
The
or
article.
proposed.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. I wish they went ahead with it. I agree with Apollo as well. That's always been the bane of our existence, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure why they never addressed it. I mean, because it wasn't really Ravens, it wasn't really Stormhost, it wasn't really Air Protoss. It was the fact that you can do that on 3 base. Yeah. So you turtle on 3 base, then when you want or can take a fourth, you take a fourth, and you can slowly take half of the map. And as long as you're being cost efficient and push it to a late game, then you win the game. And that's just what forces out unit composition, or makes it so that unit compositions like the Stormhost are or like the old Stormhost or the other ones that I mentioned are extremely powerful.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if there's no way to make more money than this guy, and it doesn't matter how many bases you take because this guy is at the peak anyway.
exactly.
What are you running units into him for in the first place, and that breaks Zerg as a race, right?
Well, you could make more money. You just have to sacrifice more army supply for it, which makes your trades even more inefficient and almost not impactful in the least.
Yeah. The underline there being unimpactful, right? If you try to run into him in his siege tank line and Raven line with minimal units compared to what you could have, then you're just not even going to get there.
So
right.
Yeah.
So from our perspective, and I would really need to nail this down because it's something that hasn't necessarily been clear, and we're working on a follow-up article to address kind of criticisms and make it more clear. Our biggest problem with Legacy of the Void economy isn't just the fact that the half patches kind of put you on like a frantic expansion spree. It's that the core issue of having 24 mineral patches available to you and getting to around 48 guys on those mineral patches results in the same mineral income in Legacy of the Void as it does in Heart of the Swarm. And if the meta ever settles around how to achieve those patches effectively or safely, then we're just going to have the same problems in the future because the core issue of worker pairing and how that works hasn't been addressed. So if the meta settles around getting 4 quick bases to replace, to have the 48 mineral patches available to you as a Protoss, Terran, Zerg, whatever, if it settles and you can do that and you can build a 200 supply army at that point, then you're going to have the same kind of big army snaking across the map making money because we didn't address the core concern. We just put a band-aid on it, in my opinion, and we just kind of made it go away for a little bit, especially in the early beta because everybody's trying all the new units. And we've kind of adjusted how gas versus mineral based armies want to work, and we've just kind of pushed the issue to later in the meta development as opposed to trying to address the core issue and offer more options to the players.
Yeah, and I want to, on that line of thought, I want to point out that you can still do things like you would do in Heart of the Storm, like 3 or 4 bases, still enough to get a really cost-efficient army. It may not be a 200 army, but it's an army big enough to allow you to take your 4th and continue to be cost efficient. Say like Air Protoss, like with the new carriers. And like you said, because it's a beta, it hasn't been explored completely, but it's one of those things that could come back to fuck over the game really hard. And that's why I like your model a lot better.
What do you think about, with this new model?
Sorry, go ahead.
What do you think with this new model, Zeramus, that, even in Legacy of the Voids, right now with the current economy, you think it's increasingly difficult for new players to play?
I think that's another thing that I want to touch upon in another article is raising the skill floor as opposed to just increasing the skill ceiling. So we think that our model is a little bit more good at keeping the skill floor around where it is because you can still play similar or the same strategies you do in Heart of the Swarm, but it's up to the opponent to take advantage of your strategy and create a situation that exploits it. Whereas in Legacy of the Void, a new player who maybe doesn't have 130 APM or whatever might not be able to keep up with all the having to take expansions quickly or have super cost-efficient units to defend those expansions, like being able to use a disruptor to kill 20 roaches when they have a 3rd base going up because they're trying to go quick. And it's a faster pace, and it might be too quick for really new players, but that's something that is going to have to come out later. Like, it might be okay because the new players are both facing the same issue. So I don't know. All I do know is that I think that opening up more options through a different economic model is just going to be better overall because it gives you more things to play with, and it might give us more longevity in terms of strategic development.
I have a question for you.
For sure.
So one thing we really like, and I haven't really heard anyone complain about it, is how fast Legacy of the Void is moving. Right?
Right.
You've taken out a lot of that, a little bit of that early game, but the biggest thing is that you have to expand, right? But I also like what your article brings up, and is that let's make expanding not a requirement to succeed, but let's make it, you can decide to expand and you can get an advantage from that decision. Would this change keep the game at a fast pace that we're seeing in Legacy of the Void?
So what I've read this, I look what we did with our model. I'm gonna try and be clear here, not muddle my words.
Mhm.
Is we tried to follow as much of Blizzard's design direction as possible, and we did our article from the base of 1,500 mineral patches at all bases, just from like an understanding the economy model. But I can understand how they want to make the game go a little bit quicker pace. So I can concede that maybe 1,500 patches in each mineral line is too much. Now, our model does mine a little bit quicker than the standard model in Heart of the Swarm. And I think alongside that, finding a sweet spot of dropping the mineral patches and how much money is available to you at each base, maybe 1,400 on each patch or 1,350 on each patch, could make all the bases mine out 1.5 to 2 minutes quicker relative to Heart of the Swarm. And that could push you to expand more, but it might not necessarily be as punishing as the half patches where your economy just kind of plummets. Because one of our big fears is that you've got a player, so a non-turtle player will have an incentive to sit there and contain the other player, until the other player runs out of minerals. So we're worried about kind of base denial strategies being the core of the strategic options. And being too easy, yeah. Like, that's one of our other concerns. But in the grander scheme of things, is we think that maybe finding a middle ground. So in our model, you can start at 6 workers instead of 12 and still have a faster early game build order without taking out all the super early game, and still allowing things like overlords more time to reach the opponent's main base as the opponent's build develops, allowing more time for probes to get across the map, allowing for something like a proxy gateway to happen, because you're not sitting on 12 workers and the other guy's already got a spawning pool finished by the time you get there with a pylon up, right? Like, we're trying to think of ways to kind of bridge the gap between the Legacy of the Void model, which has some positives to it, but has some negatives to it as well, we think, and the Heart of the Swarm model. We think that both of them are kind of different extremes of the same spectrum. We think that the Heart of the Swarm model is very much for turtle players, and the Legacy of the Void model is very much for very quick, fast, frantic games that will end up feeling scrappy a lot of the times. And we kind of want to find a middle point where it's more up to the player to choose what kind of model they want to play with. Do they want to play the more defensive style, or do they want to play a very aggressive, frantic, expanding style? And we want to kind of give the power to the player and make it proportionate, so you don't have the guy in Legacy of the Void who's trying to expand, the other guy's got this huge army denying thirds over and over and over again, and they feel powerless to really hold that third or take more economy. Whereas in Heart of the Swarm, you have the other issue where you have the guy on 3 bases who's sitting there, and the other player feels powerless because they can't break the 3 bases at any point in time, and they just slowly starve themselves out. So we think that a middle ground might actually give more strategic choice and depth to the game to give people options to counterplay one or both styles, or choose whichever style they like to play.
Right. So I think the last point I want to get to, we're going to talk about one other thing revolving around this, but one specific point. Can you give a real quick, concise explanation about how you can start with 6 workers and still keep the fast economy?
Right. So you start with 6 workers, and each of your first 6 workers will mine 60 minerals per minute instead of 42 minerals per minute.
Okay.
So they'll actually be mining 30% more money in the early game than your other workers in Heart of the Swarm. So you can actually speed the game up that way by having enough money to put down an 8 pylon or 8 supply depot or 8 overlord, or I guess 7 overlord, instead of going the 9, 9, and 8, like instead of, so you push everything down 1 supply there, and then as you get more workers, the supply keeps pushing down a little bit. So you end up with like an 11 gateway and like a 13 core, and everything just goes a little bit quicker, like it would in Brood War, for example, where they just made more money relative to the cost of things early in the game. Now, there is one question that came up in chat that I really want to answer quickly, and it asks if it's from Conductor 40,000. It says, if you're doing a 1 base all-in, you shouldn't make 16 workers. That's not true. What you end up doing in this model is you got 8 workers that work at individually 100% efficiency. And as you get another 8, individually their efficiency drops, but your overall income curve keeps rising as you get more workers. So if you have 16 workers on 1 base, you're still making more than 8 workers on 1 base. But the guy who expands he should be spreading those 8 workers to 2 bases, because by Maynarding, you're actually getting more money because the workers are more efficient on 2 different mineral lines. And that's what we mean by spreading workers for more income. So it actually gives the 2 base player defending a 1 base all in a little bit more income to be able to hold that 1 base all in, assuming they scout correctly and they cut workers appropriately, and all that'll have to be figured out in the metagame. Like maybe you go up to 10 workers on each base, so 20 workers total, and you can hold a 1 base all in off of a 20 worker or 16 workers on 1 mineral line with that extra income for more mineral based defense like circling spine college, stuff like that.
All right. So I think that this is definitely a topic that, a good article has already been provided. We're getting a lot of information. A lot of people in the community are intrigued by it, especially the the well-known people, the personalities in the pros. They're very intrigued by this idea. So the information is there. We're getting more information. Now, if we want to go to Blizzard with it, Nathanias, Apollo, CatZ, is this something that, you'd be willing to, if you support this idea, or you at least support Blizzard, jumping into it? Is this something, you'd be willing to, join forces together with other pros and personalities to say, hey, Blizzard, we really want you to look into this, instead of just sitting back and hoping, hey, maybe they'll take a peek at this?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, whenever people have discussed big changes or whatever, my way of kind of doing that was to just test it. I've done a lot of show matches for every big balance change that they pushed, including the Swarm Host one. I mean, it's it's for them to really make the big decision on.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, at least if you're just straight up asking would I support bringing this to the table in a big way if we get enough data about what it would cause, then yeah. I only want what makes the game the most interesting, really.
All right. Well, hey, Zeromos, thank you for coming on to the show and rehashing that information. I know you talked about it yesterday.
I think we should discuss this a bit more. It's just been Zeromos talking, and maybe there's more questions in the chat or anything like that. I think this is actually quite important. I don't think we should just skip through it because.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, for starters, Blizzard isn't very good at taking feedback. It seems they're good at listening to feedback. Acting upon it though usually takes too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wish they took more risks with stuff like this. Now, the problem that I can see from their perspective implementing something like this is they might have to rebalance the game completely, right? So yeah, I don't really know what needs to be done, but I know this. I think this model, I support this model strongly, and I think that this would be the better way to go moving forward. I've been playing a lot of Legacy of the Void, and there's already a lot of issues that I find with the game. As positive and as excited as I am for it, it could be better, And I think these are issues that the earlier they're addressed, the better. Now, you brought up how if we would be willing to bring it up to Blizzard, but we do, right? We're all in contact with Blizzard, we're all in chats with Blizzard, but whether it happens or not is not really up to anyone but Blizzard. Zeromos himself was or messaged me not long ago on TL just to see if I could help support the idea, and I would love to, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. They're just not. It's kind of frustrating. Last I spoke to Sion, I told him in the Blizzard chat, sometimes a lot of things are said that are really good ideas and they're never discussed. So again, when they're looking for feedback on a specific topic, they're really good at taking it. When they're not, and it's people suggesting ideas that might be brilliant, it just you just don't see it much of a discussion on it. So I really wish that changed.
So do you think that people like you in Control, Apollo, Nathanias, all these people, even, Artosis and Tasteless and Day 9, is there a little more room for you guys to be no, we want an answer on this now, or we want to know what you're thinking, a way to, you can't strong arm them. You don't really have too much of them saying, or, we'll pull our pros from your tournament and we'll try to get everyone else to do it along with us. Aside from something that drastic, can't you just say, hey, no, we want you to look at this. You haven't really given us a good response. That's unacceptable.
I don't know. That sounds unrealistic.
The thing is with these type of changes is I mean, as good as the article is and as good as everyone really appreciates it, it's very difficult without concrete evidence and actual something to give them rather than just an article and theory crafting, right?
No,
of course,
absolutely.
I totally understand. So we're working on getting some show matches going soon,
Right.
Hopefully, if we could open like a TL Open, even on just Heart of the Swarm, using the extension mod, I think that'd be a really cool way to kind of say, hey, look at all the things that could happen. Even if
Yeah.
it's just a day, it's something to look at and say, hey, look, there's options available and things are here, and there could be something, anything really. And I think
Yeah.
the best thing we can do is be positive and push forward as a community and just show them as
Yeah.
opposed to just yell at them, right?
That's the only way it can ever work. Is there's no way right now from an article, no matter how many people go behind it, there's no way that Blizzard could ever implement this.
No. So see, that's not what I'm saying.
It's way too risky. It's complete.
Right.
I mean, like Kat said, it can completely destroy the game. But whether they, I'm already certain that they know about it. Like they're not that stupid. They probably read it and know about it and they understand it. But what do they do about it? And that's the silent part, which we know and love from Blizzard, because they know about it, but they won't do anything about it because there's nothing they can do.
I mean, the easier thing is not to do anything about it, right?
Right.
Well,
I mean, they can communicate about it and they go, yes, we read the article. And then people are like, we'll do something about it. And then they're like, well, we can't.
Well, so that's the thing is that there are very many times where we don't even get that kind of feedback. We don't even get, hey, we're looking into it. Sometimes we'll get that, but not always. There are a lot of important discussions that we'll see hit the front page of Team Liquid or Reddit and don't make it, there's no public response. And I think that's an issue, and it's definitely important. And it would be really nice if, like, once a week we got, hey, we saw this discussion, that discussion go on. And these are not just we're looking at it, but here's what our developers said. If they see this article, if they're looking at it, give us like your immediate feedback. Don't say anything permanent. Say, hey, look, this is not permanent. This is just our initial thought on it. But let us know what you're thinking. I don't see how that could be a negative from on Blizzard's standpoint to give us that kind of.
To be fair to Blizzard, from a PR perspective, it's difficult to come out and say, hey, look, this is cool. We kind of are looking into it, and then we'll let you know later. And then if they say we tested and we don't like it, the community goes, oh, rabble, you don't like it like every other one, blah, blah, blah. So it puts them in a really tough position. So that's why I'm saying the community has to take it upon ourselves to actually try what we can to show them that it's a good idea.
But
and hopefully through some traction in that sense with real games and real ideas and more push from personalities, pros, whoever that enjoy the system and enjoy playing with it, maybe that way we can start getting some traction with.
I mean, the one advice I would say on this, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you
Go
finished.
ahead, it's fine.
The one advice I would say is that if you got to keep the ball going and the momentum from where you are right now, is you can't let this die down, and you should try to do things as fast as possible, because if a change like this is to ever be implemented, it's now.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, the game is very early in beta. The later it goes, the harder it'll ever become to implement this. So
and then that's kind of another thing that kind of off topic, but like one of the things that I've said, like I wish we were a little bit more drastic in the way that we changed the game, kind of like Dota does. I mean, I hate comparing like the game to something else, but like Dota has always very, very drastic patches, that completely switch and completely reset the game and the way it's played. I wish or StarCraft, like we had more of those, more more radical changes once in a while that kept the game fresh, if nothing else. Even if there's a little bit imbalance in between and stuff like that. Like I wouldn't even care if I know another patch, 2 or 3 months from then is coming and the game is going to be fun to learn again, because
right, especially within a beta, because no one's professional incomes or lives or teams are on the line with the beta.
Right. So I think with that, I want to go back to that point I made, which was I get what you're saying about the PR perspective, right? Because if they come back and the community loves to flame Blizzard. Anytime we get an answer that we don't like, it's you don't care, do you? No. Well, I think the issue with that isn't when they come back and they just, they give feedback and we don't like it. I think the issue comes when they give feedback and we don't get a detailed answer. If they came back and said, yeah, we looked at it and this is why we don't like it, and they gave an actual detailed look, this is what we looked into, and they gave specific points, no vague answers, it's kind of hard for the community to say, yeah, well, no, fuck you anyway, we still don't think you care. No, then it's like, okay, you did your homework, you actually tried.
Yeah. To touch on that for 1 second, I'm sorry. Just on the same line of thought. The last thing that I told Sion was, I really feel like giving feedback, like extensive feedback on how I feel the game is playing out, on the Blizzard chat does nothing. So I'm just gonna save my breath. Like I wrote an article on how CVC works and my first impressions of CVC in the beta, and it's it took me a few hours to write, to gather my thoughts and to write. It's a long article, and that's just CBC and my first initial impressions. So it feels like putting in that kind of work and thought into it, and then dumping it into a chat or feedback in general that we don't get an answer for. It's like you said, it's kind of frustrating. So like I told Sion, I would love to give more feedback, but I would like to talk to the developers so they can explain to me why an idea that I bring up is not worth it, rather than just completely ignoring it.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems in StarCraft when it comes to these type of things, when it comes to big changes to the game, is, I mean, maybe you guys disagree with this, but a lot of the times that Blizzard do try stuff, we don't test it properly as a community, whether it's the pro gamers as a whole or the community as a whole. Is they put ideas out there and it was like, fuck it, I'm practicing for WCS. I don't care. I don't want to do it. I gave you ideas, fix it. And then they don't actually do anything about it. And I think that's a problem in the community we've had for a long time.
This is pretty much like my biggest thing. You kind of touched on this a bit earlier, Sean, but like pretty much if you want this to happen, you need to get like a group of people that can get eyes on it, testing it as soon as humanly possible. Like the first example that I can think of that a bunch of people, like maybe the community wasn't as polarized on something like this, but like this guy made this big post about how units should be separated more or whatever, and then didn't do any like big testing or implement it into any type of like test map or patch or whatever. But maybe it was before extension mods, and then Blizzard shut the guy down. And like the only response that the community had back to Blizzard for that was like, well, you didn't give us like a really good reason as to why units clumping up don't work in StarCraft. But I think the best way to make something like this happen, and the only way, is to get a lot of people to test it, get as many games out as possible being played on this. And you don't show the concept to Blizzard, you show the result and the community's feedback, because at the end of the day, if everybody's behind like actual results and actual data rather than an idea, it's a lot easier for them to consider implementing it rather than forcing them to test it themselves when they don't actually. It's not like Blizzard's run, like the Blizzard Swarm Host test show match. Like that never happened. Blizzard never paid a big group of players to play this like test map for the Swarm Hosts. And as a result of that, like I know I did a couple of show matches. There were maybe a couple people that played the game for fun, but there was nowhere near the volume of data that Blizzard needed to make a change like the Swarm Host one that they made. And we're seeing the results of that in Zerg players basically, being fucked, like straight up. So if the community wants this change, it can't just be like, oh, okay, well, this guy's going to run show matches. No, you need to get as many people that if anybody tells you that they like it or support it, you should ask them in as polite a way as possible to get some eyes on the results of what you're suggesting and not just the idea. Like that's my biggest fear, is that like all these good ideas get put up and then like it sucks that it's on the community to do this, but if the community doesn't test it out, Blizzard's going to do whatever they feel is right. Yeah, exactly. It's like the Swarm Host change.
Yeah, like imagine if people did test it. Right.
Yeah. If there were hundreds of pro games played on this test map for Swarm Hosts, I would really bet almost anything that it would not have gone through the way that it did. Like if people were able to see the result of this and how useless the new Swarm Host was, like if people had known enough about it in advance,
it's not useless.
It wouldn't have happened. Well, you know what I mean. Like in the
like
way,
it doesn't. The way that it's affected.
The way that it's affected the matchup. Like
we definitely have an empty spot where the Storm Host was.
For sure.
So with that, that's the kind of, I completely agree with you, Nate. I think that, we do need that, and there should be that kind of community action, but at the same time, we also need, Blizzard to give us some semblance of a well-rounded response when it comes to these issues. There's got to be that give and take, and I understand that they hold the power chips right now. They can control the flow of communication, and all we can do is gripe. But I think that as the community leaders, people should be going to them saying we need more information. So and we need detailed information.
Fair, I'm going to play my own devil's advocate here and say honestly, the community doesn't deserve anything from Blizzard. Like the way the community reacts to a lot of the things Blizzard does, just over time and with the history the community has had with Blizzard as a community, quote unquote, to the company, we really don't deserve a lot of what we even get now, to be honest with you. Like Sion puts in a lot of work, but anytime he even comes out and says something like, oh, well, I'll come back to you with an answer, he gets flamed. Like the guy's the community manager, right? He doesn't like sit next to David Kim all day and go, hey buddy, pump him in the shoulder, ask him a question. he's got to go through channels just like everybody else because it's a company, right? It's a corporation. So he's got to pop off an email. He's got to wait until somebody's free. He's got to wait for an answer. And then he's got to go through PR. And then through PR, he has to put an answer out. So, and when people flame him for just trying to keep us up to date, it's really not fair to the guy.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's Sion. Like Sion is a great example of what Blizzard should be doing. I think he's been fantastic, and he gets punished for it because he's the only face that they give out that you can actually reach out to.
Well,
yeah, but, so it's like, hey, I have a problem with Blizzard. Fuck you, Sion. But like Sion is fucking excellent. Like he's just I wish everyone at Blizzard was like Sion.
Like, I'm going to come out and say it. Like, if it wasn't for Sion, we wouldn't have community maps. We wouldn't have TLMC. We wouldn't have any of that stuff. So, you know, he's a big guy that we should really be giving more credit to as a community and try our best not to flame him whenever possible because he puts in a lot of work.
Yeah, but he's a single guy.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is that gap between that guy and reaching the actual people that would be able to answer these questions. Like if David Kim came on shows more often, which I know he did like once or twice in the past. If he discussed openly with pro gamers, maybe the development team could, like, if there was a show where pro gamers could discuss with the development team, especially like maybe not something that has to be like ongoing, but something that was at least in this period of time where we're deciding what the game is going to be like. Like if you bring up the new Swarm host, if you bring up the patch, right, to a conversation with 4 developers and 4 pro gamers, if there's one cert pro gamer or one non-biased pro gamer, they're going to be like, hey, dude, like, how are we going to deal with this shit? And then they're going to be like, oh, wait, it worked in our tests. Yeah, but you guys are fucking plaid, you know? Like, no offense, like him. But, you know what I'm saying. Like, it's like you know what I'm saying. Like we lack proper ways of communicating with these people.
I agree. And to go with what you were saying, Zeramus, about not deserving, I get that. True. But it's like it's a cycle, right? You know, people get upset because we don't get enough information. Blizzard doesn't give enough information. I don't think they're doing it to spite us. I just think that they internally, and people that direct their anger towards Scion or Zoevia or any of the other community managers, that's not where it's supposed to go. In fact, there shouldn't be any kind of anger directed towards anyone. It more should just be a collective, calm, hey, this isn't enough information. We build up your game beyond the initial release, right? They sell their millions of copies to the people that just play the campaign, and after that, everything else is esports for StarCraft 2. And we support that. So we're asking, as we continue to support this, as we want to be a part of this community and make it better, we need you to give us a little more information so we can understand the process on your end and then give you the right information from our end.
Yeah, that's what's most important, discussing the process. Go on, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just, the problem is also that, like, Blizzard is a big corporation and StarCraft is a little team on that. And Blizzard has like a reputation of hold, and the StarCraft team has a reputation, at least in terms of like positivity and stuff like that, to hold. And there's an identity, quote unquote, within of Blizzard, and the PR team is the one that kind of maintains that and keeps it going from a company perspective. So I honestly don't think a big discussion is ever going to happen in public about the game. But the best thing, in my opinion, would be to have more backdoor discussions, even if they're not public, and let Blizzard, with the feedback and have some sort, and with people they know aren't going to just kind of fly off the handle and like, oh yeah, Blizzard's terrible, blah blah blah, after they come out of a meeting room in California or whatever, or out of an audio call with them. But like, Blizzard can take their time after and do the PR response. But I think the most important thing is that there needs to be more discussion between the people who have ideas and want to improve the game and the pro gamers directly with the development team, so they can get more feedback and a more back and forth discussion, even if it's private.
Absolutely.
And people don't say anything, and it's up to Blizzard to do a public release later on, a discussion. Like, that's fine.
I'd have no problem with that.
But it's got to happen in some way, you know.
Make us sign NDAs, fly us over to the office if you want. Like, it's, like, I'm sure there's a lot of, like, StarCraft is so much more than just my professional gaming career for me. It's also like the main game that my team does. Like, it's really frustrating to be both an outsider to this kind of decisions and then just watch kind of place the fate of my business essentially onto hands that are at times incapable or seem incapable, or like at least unwillingly to discuss, or it's just frustrating from my standpoint. I don't know about you guys, but
No, so I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing coming from Zeromos, and I would love that. If Cats are in control, or Apollo or Nathanias or one of these people came out and they said, "Hey, Blizzard is talking to us," and they're actually very adamant, I would trust you guys to say, "Yeah, we're liaising with Blizzard. We've taken this, and it's not just, hey, we're looking at it, but they're actually looking at it. They've shown us the data." They've shown us, what they're working on, and we believe that they're giving us the full rundown, right? They're doing their due diligence on this, the Swarm host or whatever it is. I would have no problem with that. And I think that's a compromise. Instead of releasing it on a full page blog where everyone can see it, have you guys, the community representatives, the people that we love, say, "Hey, Blizzard's freaking on it, and we're working closely with them." I'm happy with that.
yeah, I mean, I would be very happy with that.
I think that'd be a great direction if the Blizzard team took it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so maybe that's the next step. Not necessarily taking a specific issue, but going to them saying, "Look, this is how we would like to address issues in the future. Is us as a team working together, community leaders, Blizzard, making StarCraft a better place."
Yeah, that's the thing, though. It's completely up to them. Like you're making it sound like we can make an alliance and be like, "Hey, Blizzard, we're the alliance. Let us in." It's completely up to them. I mean, there's Blizzard people watching the show, I'm sure. If not, they'll be watching the VODs. I'm sure, like David Kim or someone in their team is watching, or will be watching.
Yeah.
So, especially like once it goes to Reddit and stuff like that. So, it's really up to them. I mean, all the cards are out there. It's just for them to decide whether they.
And I guess I wonder, because I've never been involved. I've talked to the community managers. I've tried to get David Kim to come on the show and stuff, and I get that, there's a certain point where I'm like, "Oh, okay, you said no, okay, that's fine." But, I wonder to what extent, when do we stop at no? Like, when does, like, no, come on, pressure. But, that's really something you can only theorize about, and the effectiveness. But I know they are going to be watching, so, hey, guys, listen to this, please. But anyway, so do you have any other thoughts, Nathanias, on this topic? Just not just economy change, but
I mean, like I'm just gonna reiterate what I said earlier. If we want things to be done, we have to work on it in our own way and then present it as a finished pack. We have to present our ideas in something that's really easy for them to digest, so that they don't have to invest their own resources into looking into it. Otherwise, it'll get pigeonholed and we'll never see it. So the community has to be willing to actually put effort behind the ideas that it presents forward, rather than just, writing these heroic articles.
Sets you up for a bigger fall as well, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's the only way it's gonna, take a little risk with things. If you don't do it, I doubt Blizzard's gonna release their own custom test map of this economy without there being some serious data put beforehand.
I'll tell you what, I will dedicate a couple weeks of Lycan League to this test map. So
That'd be super cool.
Willing to do
really
that.
Appreciate the effort. And on Nathanias' point, I started thinking maybe I'm going to set up an email for a Gmail or something to collect replays of whoever wants to play test games on.
That's a smart thing to do.
So they can collect it, and then I will, over the weekend, because I'm a student and I got a job and I got to move soon. I'm going to try and liaise with any replay stats. I don't know what the biggest replay stat website is right now out there, but if you run it and you want to help me collect stats replays in a bundle so we can send it all to Blizzard, I'm sure they've got some sort of application that analyzes stuff. We could do that, and we could have a big bundle, and we can try and make that work as well.
So here's a thought. Talking about these kind of things and where we don't get that full-on feedback. One thing we've been asking for a long time are skins, voice packs, and what do we call them? Portraits, right? We can see people wanting them. We know people would pay for them. We see this working in many other games. I don't know about you guys, but I might switch to Protoss, as some of those steampunk Protoss pictures could actually be, put into the game. So we know that skins are capable. We know how easy it is to take a voice pack and put it in there. And one thing I was thinking of doing is creating a little voice pack, like getting Destiny to do some drone sounds, and Total Biscuit said he would make a few sounds, as a command center insulting you for being supply blocked or running low on minerals or Vespene or something like that. Get a couple people to design a few skins, and I was going to have them put it in in the what do you call it, the map editor, so you can upload your own skins, get a few images of it, and just kind of put it together like a sample compendium that we would have, if we were to be able to do that stuff, and then send it off to them and release it in the community. And then you start generating that discussion in the community, like, oh my god, look at that. And people are like, hey, you know what, I can design skins too. And people start just making them, and it's like, look, now we have all this content, all these people have made voice packs or skins, and then that kind of puts the pressure on Blizzard to take a little bit of a harder look into it when they see that much backing into it. But at the same time, people might not be doing that if Blizzard had given us a little more acknowledgement, like, yeah, we're looking into it, and this is why we think it would be a good idea or not a good idea for this game.
I think the thing is, you just got to push through that kind of like feedback or no feedback. Just keep going if you think you've got an idea, and work with people to try and make it work in as positive a way as possible. Because all the negative or like, the save HOTS things, all due respect to you, CatZ, it was a great idea, but like the Twitter hashtags and all those campaigns and stuff, they didn't really come off as like quote unquote positive overall, because you had people latch on to any aspect of negativity in it and use it as like a jab, and that kind of thing. So we have to focus on just remaining positive.
Mm-hmm.
And when we really want to push, we want to do positive, impactful, easily seen things that don't involve telling Blizzard they're doing anything wrong. Because honestly, my model could be totally off, could be terrible, could not work, and I'm okay with that. I just want to see it have a chance, at least, to be tested by a number of people. And if that's got to be done by us, then by all means, we'll do it, right?
Yeah, I very much agree with that. Apollo, any last thoughts on this topic?
No, I agree with everything that's been said.
I'm glad we talked about this much.
I do too. Thanks, CatZ, for bringing us back into it.
Yeah, no problem.
Sure, man.
Do you have any final thoughts, CatZ?
No, I think everything's been said. Yeah, I like the positivity. I can't be as positive just because I have been in the Blizzard chat, just because I've been doing this for 4 years and trying to push things for 4 years, and it doesn't always work out. So it's a little bit rough to be positive, a little bit hard sometimes. So I think that the one thing that I think we need is a proper channel of communication. And like you brought up before, like if Blizzard told us why something doesn't work for them, even if it's a stupid reason, like, hey, we don't have the resources or the people to implement this, that's more than what they're doing right now. What they're doing right now is just frustrating whenever like everything, like any idea gets ignored.
Right.
So it would just be nice. And like Sion doesn't necessarily have the, and I'm glad someone brought up Sion as well, because he doesn't necessarily have the power or the authority to comment on everything. And sometimes it's best for him to just stay quiet. And the community gives him a lot of shit because he's the only face that StarCraft gives us to give a lot of shit to.
Right.
Like David Kim doesn't even have a Twitter, so we spam an English professor instead. But
there is unfortunately,
Sion is fucking awesome, is what I'm trying to say, and he doesn't get much shit. He really, really, really tries his best.
Yeah. There are a lot of other community managers, like Zoevia. She does a lot too. I've talked to her a lot, and she helps me. And also, there is a David Kim on Twitter. It's at David Kim, but it's not the right David Kim. And every now and then you check on it, and he'll tweet out like, "Please stop messaging me. I'm not who you think I am." Is that who you were talking about when you said the English professor? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm guilty of that myself. But anyway, I'm really glad we hashed that out. Zeramos, thank you. I know you already went through that on Remax. I know that's a lot of information. I really appreciate you coming on and going over that with us.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on. If I could have 2 seconds, there was a question in chat that we didn't get to.
No, you're done. Sorry. Go ahead.
And it's J727, or he re-quoted from Chappie, and it's, wouldn't you say the issue of rebalancing is already there with the change to Legacy of the Void economy? And so does it really matter if you need to rebalance around Legacy of the Void eco or your suggested eco? We're going to address this in detail in a follow-up article to a lot of the criticisms we received and further questions. But in short, regardless of which economy you use, you're going to have to rebalance the game. And we tried really hard to make our model curve as closely to Heart of the Swarm as possible, so that the only situation where the balance, quote unquote, is super different is when you have something like a super fast 6 bases. But if you're on 3, 4, and then maybe a 5th base a little bit slower, the economy curves out fairly similar to what it does now. So we think that balancing would probably actually be easier, but I'll get into more detail on that in a follow-up article. So I appreciate the question. I was trying to answer it.
Cool.
Now I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, well, no, now I have a question for you. Real
Right.
quick, how would the mules be affected by your change?
Mules overall are ever so slightly worse as they are now. We didn't change any numbers on the mules. So a mule will still collect 270 minerals or whatever that number is. I can't remember off the top of my head in the time that it's alive. And while the mule might be less impactful compared to a regular SCV, if you've got only 8 SCVs working it when you drop the mule, it'll be just as impactful as it is in Heart of the Swarm when you've got a full 16 workers on the mineral line, because the income at 16 workers is almost the exact same in Heart of the Swarm as it is in our model. Almost the exact same.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, well, thank you, man, for coming on, and really appreciate that.
For sure, thank you. I appreciate you having me on and giving us a chance to have this discussion. It was really fruitful, so I'll try and set up that email, and I'll talk to some people about getting more show matches and maybe a replay website, and I'll talk to you later about the Lightning League then.
Yeah, definitely. Once that's up, Lycan League will do a match on it, or a couple matches.
Cool. Thank
Good
you
luck,
very
man.
much. All right.
Get that extension mod as fast as possible.
Well, we've got an extension mod out already, actually. What we haven't done
Good
is
luck, son.
the number of minerals overall
Okay.
for the concession there, but we'll be working on updating that, and then I'll let you know.
All right, sounds good, guys.
You're a brave man.
Thank you.
We're gonna take just a very, 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 very quick break, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about the fight night, and finally get wrapped up on some Legacy of the Void stuff, and then that'll be it for the night. So we're gonna be gone. It'll only be a 2-minute break, and then we'll be right back. Talk to you guys in a second.